Let first discuss the agenda of the today's presentation. So it's more like a discussion. First, I would like to say that I'll be discussing a lot of things with you guys, and I want a lot of input from you as well, so that it can be a really good interactive session. So first of all, we are going to discuss about a brief introduction into robotics. Then we will go to anatomy of robotics. That's what makes a robot, basically its parts and it's the stuff that makes it up. And then there's the classification and application of robots. This will be the first half where I'll be sharing some stuff with you, and there will be interactive sessions also. And then comes the main part where I will tell you how you can start into robotics without actually using any hardware. And it's a really good design approach, and it's commonly used in industries as well. Then there will be a Q&A session at the last. And so let's get started. Yeah. So before start, I would like to ask you all guys, what comes to your mind when you hear the word robot? So if you can unmute or you can just type into a chat, what do you understand when you hear the word robot? What is the meaning of robot to you? Ease of doing working. A robot is basically consists of these three steps. It's not. It's a cycle actually. So what it starts, there's a robot, there's a machine that can actually sense its surrounding. Then depending on what it has sensed, it plans, it computes what it can do or what it has to do, and then it acts according to that plan. Then again it senses to check whether it has done that plan correctly or not. Then it again takes the feedback. So there's a complete feedback loop. You get this input from sensor, you plan accordingly, you act, then you recheck it, and then again do the same thing again and again. So this is the most basic part of robot. Yes, it can also make a machine smart. So basically, one can argue that my AC is also a robot because it senses the temperature. It plans that okay, the temperature is high or low, and accordingly it starts to act whether the temperature should be raised or lowered. So, but there's a difference between a robot, autonomous machine capable of sensing its environment, carrying out computations to make decisions, and performing actions in the real world. So here are some important things I would like to highlight. So a robot is an autonomous machine. Autonomous means it can act on its own without much human intervention. So autonomy has a different levels. So one can say that if a machine, a robot can be remote controlled as well as autonomous. So you can say it a semi-autonomous machine. And capable of sensing in its environment, you are getting input through sensors from environment, and then carrying out computation, that is sense, compute, and act, and to make decisions. So sense, compute, and act is the loop here. And performing actions in real world. Real world is important because the robots exist in real world, not in virtual, say in your computers or something else. So it has a mechanical aspect to it. It has real world. It is a physical. It has a physical appearance as well. So now we have discussed quite good about robot, but what now? Tell me the definition. What is basically where you study about the robots, how to implement this basic loop in a wide variety of fields. You can say a robotics is an interdisciplinary branch in a sense that it takes its some of the things from mechanical engineering, electrical or electronics engineering, and computer science engineering. So it is a combination of all these three domains of engineering had already been there, but now they have been combined, and the basic part that works together makes a robot, and the study of all these things is basically robotics. So there's a lot of way to enter into robotics. You can do mechanical engineering, electronics engineering, then or computer science engineering, then go into robotics. So now let's discuss the parts of robot. So a robot consists of basically the sensor, because it needs to sense its environment. Now sensors are basically categorized into proprioceptive and exteroceptive. So proprioceptive is that a sensor type that is used to sense its internal measures, say battery level, say the position of its wheels or position of its joints. Those are internal variables. So proprioceptive is used for that. Exteroceptive, as the name suggests, extro means outer. So it senses the outer environment, say a vision sensor, a camera. So it takes input from camera or proximity sensor. So those kind of things comes in exteroceptive. Now sensor can be active and passive depending upon whether it is emitting something. So basically proximity sensor, infrared sensor, it emits the infrared light, then there's a receiver side upon it. So if there's an emitter and receiver, it's an active sensor. Passive sensor is like ultrasound is also active. Say camera. So camera is basically a passive, it just receives input from outside. And GPS is also passive sensor. It just receives the signal from satellite. There's only one-way communication. So if there's a one-way communication between environment and the sensor, it's a passive. And if they're two-way, like it sends and receives, then it's active. Now actuator is also important. It's basically in the loop of sense, plan, and act. Actuators are the one that moves the robot parts. So the subdivision is electric motors. So electric motor or pneumatic or hydraulic, they move the parts of robot. Electric motor is because it converts electrical energy into mechanical energy. Pneumatic is based on air pressure. Hydraulic is based on some fluid pressure. Then comes power source. There's a need for power source because you are generating motion. So the power source can be battery, and IC engine also can be a power source, and supercapacitor, fuel cells. So basically whatever that gives you some kind of motion can be a power source or gives you an electrical energy. So mechanical linkages, because your robot is in the physical environment, it has to have some mechanical aspect to it. So basically a chassis, just like in a car, or joints and linkages, what that makes the mechanical aspect of a robot. Then comes a controller, the brain of the robot that does the computation. So you have your code, your algorithms written inside the controller, and it takes the input from sensor and commands the actuator to do things accordingly. So microcontroller and microprocessor are the things that can control your, or both can control your robot. Now end effector. So your robot is assigned some task. So to do that task, to manipulate some object, it needs some kind of end effector. End effector is basically a gripper. Say you want to pick or place an object, so there will be a gripper, a screwdriver, a hammer. So these are kind of mechanical works. So in industry, the robot is used for say paint job or welding. So spray gun or welding gun can be an end effector. So let's see the classification of robot. So classification is basically how the robot navigates into an environment. So the basic one is mobile robots. Mobile robots can move into its environment. So can you tell me what this robot, what's the name of this robot? just if you know. You can see it's actually built by NASA. I'll give you a hint. Yeah, Mars. It's a Mars rover. So the name given was Curiosity. It's a Mars rover. It can move. So basically, it's mobile. That's the definition of mobile robot. If it can move in its environment, it's a mobile robot. Then comes fixed robot, because you can see it's a robotic arm. So if the base of robot is fixed, then it will be categorized as a fixed robot. So it can move around its end effector, but the base is fixed. So subdivision of mobile robot is based on the lanes, the environment it navigates. It's aquatic robot. So basically, aquatic robot navigates within the underwater or over water. So it's an autonomous robot that can go inside water, and here it's doing the seabed analysis. Then terrestrial robot, a robot that can move on land surface. It's categorized as terrestrial robot. So here the robot has wheels. It can move around on the surface. So airborne robot, the quadcopters, the drones are classified into airborne robots. They can navigate and move in the air. The further terrestrial robots are classified as wheeled robot. Wheeled robot is basically here, the example is the self-driving car, Newtonomy. So it has wheels. It uses wheels to navigate through the land surface. So basically, it's a wheeled robot. Then comes the legged robot. Here's its Atlas robot by Boston Dynamics. It has human-like locomotion. So it's a humanoid, and it moves using its limbs. There's no wheel attached to it, so it's a legged robot. So now you have seen the types of robots. So tell me, what kind of application do you see perfectly for robots? So what almost all, a large number of robots that are being that have been developed. So there's a list of all the robots that you can see. I'll go to sort robots. So in this one, there's a type of robots. In type, this is basically the application of robots. There's a subcategories as well. So humanoids are type of robot. Consumer robotics is an application. Drones, another type of robot. Entertainment, the robots can be used for entertainment, for education, in research, medical. Exoskeleton is a type of robot. There's application robotics there. Then for disaster response, service and industrial robots. Then in underwater, military and security purposes, the robots can be used. Then the telepresence. Telepresence means that basically you are somewhere and you have sent a robot for in place of you to do your task. So telepresence can be, say you are attending a virtual conference, you have sent your robot instead of going yourself. That's one application of telepresence robot. Then self-driving cars, the upcoming self-driving cars is basically another type of robot. It senses the environment and it navigates through it. So let me just navigate through. For example, you can see there are a lot of humanoid robots. This is Asimo, Atlas. Similarly, in consumer robotics, you would see things like there's a pet robot, there's a kind of toy car, or there's this quadcopter. This is Roomba kind of things, like to clean your house. Then drones, these are airborne. So they are fixed wings or quadcopter type orientation is there. There's even biomimic robot of hummingbird. So for entertainment, say you a pet robot, so it can be provide you entertainment. And the vector, it's also a toy. So there's entertainment industry for robot as well. For education purposes, to learn robotics, there's cubelets, so you can assemble them in different fashions, and they can do a lot of different tasks. This is Lego kind of robots that you can assemble and learn. So these are for teaching purposes. For research purpose, these are basically research platforms. They have provided you hardware. You can run your algorithm and see which one is more effective, and that basically a research oriented approach. In medical, there's a telepresence robot. The doctor has, there's no need for doctor to be present there. This is for operation Da Vinci. So it can operate on robot, and the human, or the doctor or surgeon controls the robot through joysticks or some controls. Exoskeleton is basically what you wear outside to give you extra boost in power and stamina. So you can walk longer, you can lift heavier objects. So for disaster response, robot is a good option, because there's no life attached to it. You can send robots in hazardous environment, or in, say, a disaster has happened, so it can go and see if there's a person stuck somewhere or not. So service and industry, basically this is a snake robot. It can navigate through smaller spaces. So it can be used for, say, pipe navigation in oil industry, so that you can see if there's a choke in the pipe that you can clear. So there's a lot of application. Here's the Baxter, that it's a cobot. You can work with it to do some task. Then in airspace comes the Curiosity. It's a space robot that we have sent to space. Robonaut is another space robot. It has been sent to ISS. Then underwater, as I've told you, this also can navigate underwater. These all can navigate either on the surface or underwater. Now, military purpose is also there. You can send robots instead of personnels to fight or to disarm certain kind of explosive, so that the lives can be saved. And telepresence is again, it's basically just like we are doing a virtual meet. So you can do virtual meet and you can navigate spaces instead of actually being present there. The self-driving car, you can see the Google, even Tesla, and there's a lot of research going on right now. So that also comes under the robots. So I want to say, so Cassie is a type of robot also. I'll just show you a feature of this website, that you can basically click on any robot and see how it moves. There's a lot of interactive ways you can explore this website. There's a lot of information about each and every aspect of the robots. And there's a lot of stuff also, robotics related article that you can read about. So these were the applications of robots. Now let us move to the second phase, basically where I tell you how you can start robotics without any actual need of hardware. So robot design process, it's similar to any kind of design engineering design process. And it starts from concept. You have a concept in mind. There are a lot of ideas, you want to explore them. Then, but you should not just uh, skip all the intermediate steps just to start manufacturing or start prototyping. So what you can do is, through concept, you start designing robot. In the design also, there's a lot of unclear things, like what, in terms of robots, what is actually the actuator specification you need, what kind of sensor you will require, what kind of algorithm do you need to actually do the task. So instead of going directly to prototype from design, you can save a lot of time doing simulation. So it actually gives you a great idea that whatever you have had you in mind, uh, can that be implemented actually. So what you do is, you design a robot, you simulate it. If there's a, say, some changes needed, you can do that easily inside a simulation. Rather than go into prototyping, you will say you have taken a wrong decision on the motors. You have actually got motors with lesser torque. So you again have to order, you have to invest more capital into it. There will be a time requirement for it. So your human resources also will go into it. So to basically reduce all that cost, we can do simulation, and through simulation, whatever the parameters we have verified, we can directly go into prototyping and implement that. So there will be a smooth flow of basically the design process. So basically, you start with a lot of ideas, then you neglect those ideas, and then there's a final product that comes out of it. So this I'll be sharing with you the tool that is basically used to design and simulate the robots. So we have a concept. Say, what I will be doing is, I'll be designing a 3-wheeled robot. Out of those 3 wheels, 2 will be actuated and one will be a passive wheel. The 2 wheels will be actuated from different motors. So this is my concept level that I have in my brain. So now then we will start the design of robot inside that particular simulator. I'll tell you the simulator that I'm using. The name is Coppelia Sim. So you can go to google.com and search Coppelia Sim. So this is the website of the Coppelia Sim. It was an open source, but now it has become a proprietary. But still, you can go to downloads and download it for free. It's a pretty light software. It comes within 160 MBs. So you can go to Coppelia, the download section, and this is the basically Coppelia Sim educational version. So you can use this one. So click on the download, and here this one is basically what you need to download. If you click on this link, a download will appear, and your file will be downloaded. Why I have selected this particular simulator is because there's no, you just download it, you just install it. There's a ease of use. The UI is very good, and the simulator itself is very capable in doing a lot of stuff. So I'll show you just in a minute. Other simulators are somewhat hard to even install. So you search Coppelia Sim. Here I have already installed it. So let me just fire it up. Yeah, we will share with you the links of all the websites that I'm navigating. So this is basically the interface of the simulator. So you can see there's there's a ground plane that has already been given, and you can navigate through. There's a lot of examples that have already been provided inside the simulator. So you only have to do is just pick and place that robot. And this is the simulation phase. The robot has already been designed, and you can just simply simulate the robot. Clicking on here, there's no actually script running. So let me just pick a robot that has a script. So this is another fixed robot, but you can see the difference is that in this robot you have linkages and actuator 3. So these are not in serial fashion, it's actually a parallel robot. So all the robots are in same plane and then connected to the end effector. So if I start the simulation, you can see the movements. So it's initially just rotating one motor at a time. Then it's trying to basically draw a square. So there are a lot of examples inside the Coppelia sim itself. You can navigate. There's a category of non-mobile robots here, and you can navigate and play with them. You can modify the scripts as well. Then comes the category of mobile robot. This is a snake robot, spider bot, or ant robot. The humanoid is also there. So there are a lot of design already available within the simulator. Now let's go back to presentation. So what I will be showing is first I will be designing the robot. Then this is the basically robot autonomy steps, how the complexity increases. So first is the manual robot. I'll be showing you manual robot in terms of say how you can control the robot basically. A manual robot is where you have the complete control of robot. There's nothing autonomous about it. And then these are basically step how you get to a intelligent robot. So first step in building a robot is you should completely control its actions. So just let me show you that one, how you can play around. So this is basically a robot. By definition, it's not a robot because it does not have sensors attached to it. It can only be controlled through remote control. So I'll be controlling it through my keyboard. So basically it's say going forward, I would made it go reverse by pressing the back key, then now forward, then left, right, then back. So I'm controlling the robot using my keyboard keys. It's a remote operated vehicle, not a robot yet. So this is the first stage of any robot design. So now what I will do is I will start designing robot. You can, this video will be uploaded to YouTube. You can follow these steps by seeing that video. So first we need a mechanical parts of the robot. Just like when you want to assemble something, you order its parts. So what I'll do is I'll make the parts and then assemble it. So how you do it, that is go to add and primitive shapes. So I'll be using cuboids. So here you can enter the size of the chassis you want. I'll be simply entering an approximate So basically the units is meters. So if already there's a 1 into 10 to the power minus 1, that means the whatever I will enter, it will be in centimeters. So the length will be around 12 centimeters. Breadth will be around 7 centimeters. And height, that is the thickness of the chassis, will be around 6 mm. So I'll just 6 into 10 to the power minus 3. So here you can see the shape that I ordered basically came directly. You do not have to wait to actually order and wait for the delivery. Here's it is already there. Now I'll make the wheels of robot. As I told you, there will be 3 wheels. So I'll use again the add, primitive shape, and cylinder. So what I will do is I'll give the dimension of cylinder. There's only X and Z because it's a circular. So you will only have to give radius. So the radius will be around 5 centimeters. In thickness around 1. So here the wheel is here and I can just drag it. So this one here, let me just explain you. This part is used for navigating the basically the plane, the simulator plane. So the first one has arrows is you can translate, you can move around the stuff, and this is for the rotation purpose. So you can rotate the things. This is for zoom in and zoom out. So basically you can zoom in, zoom out just by dragging it, or you can use scroll key to zoom in and zoom out. This is for the fit. You select just like I have selected a cuboid and you click on fit, it will zoom into it, it will fit that particular object in the whole screen. This is basically to move the objects around this part. So what I will do is I'll click the cylinder and move it around just like that. So you can move around the things using your mouse, or you can move around using by entering the particular coordinates. Just like that, you can also basically rotate using this tool. So I'll be ordering another wheel right now. So instead of just going again and adding the required cylinder, what I'll do is I'll just copy paste it. This is complete, just Control C and Control V. You will do it. So you have got another wheel ready. I'll just move it and place it. So I have now 2 wheels. I will just once more do it and the third wheel has come. Now these are the basic parts. What I have to do is the third wheel I have to make it caster wheel. The caster wheel is basically a passive wheel. So what it will be a little bit smaller in size. So I'll select it. I'll to change the property of any element around it, you just select it. You click the icon here. It's a cuboid in this particular scene. So you just double click it. It will open a dialog box. You go to view and modify geometry and enter the dimensions you require. So I'll make it 3 instead of 5. Okay, 3. So it has become smaller in size. Now I'll make one more cuboid, because in caster wheel there's a 2 degree of freedom. 2 degree of freedom means that there's a joint with chassis, vertical joint, and then there's a revolute joint through the wheel, so that it can move freely around. So for that support, I will have to add one more primitive shape, that is cuboid, and I will just enter the size of that one. So it's basically 2 by 2 into 3, that's 3 mm and 2 centimeters. So it's already there, but I have to move it around. See, it is, the part has come, and now we can start place. We have all the required parts with us. Only we have to do is assemble these things. Assemble, first we have to orient these things properly. As you can see, all are just lying on the ground. So first we have to enter the orientation properly. So we select it, and say I'll start with the chassis. The diameter of this is 5 centimeters. So I'll just here in the right corner, if you can see, right bottom corner, there's a coordinate system. So this is z-axis, this is x-axis, this is y-axis. So I have to move the cuboid upward, that's into positive z-axis. So what I'll do is I'll select the cuboid and click the translation. So I'll just enter the position that I required. X and y will be same. Z coordinate I'll have to change in order to get to it to proper position. So since it is, the wheel is of 5 centimeter diameter, I'll just place it just above the center of wheel. So it's 4 centimeters. You see, it has been lifted as soon as I have entered the coordinates. Now same thing I'll do with the wheels. So, but before doing that, I will have to reorient the wheel because it's just lying complete facing down. So for that, I'll choose this one to rotate. Rotation will be done around x-axis. You can see the x-axis is right there. So x-axis I will do just 90 degrees. Okay. So I had to do it was into its own. You can select basically the plane of rotation. So I'll select on frame and rotate it. So the rotation has been done. And now I'll just move it to its perfect location. So X coordinate is 2.5. Y, I'll just put it Z, because it's a 5. It's a 5 centimeter diameter wheel. So I'll just put 2.5 so that it is completely above the ground. Here I will put -1 so that it will be on this side. Okay. So the placement of the wheel is correct. Now I don't have to repeat the same with the second wheel. I'll just click it and select the another wheel and simply take the orientation of that one. The position are apply to selection, it will go there. Again, I will select these both. First, you have to select the target one, then the one that you want to achieve. So now I have to copy the orientation. Orientation is here. See, now it is completely gone, coincided with the previous one. For that, I have to change the location again. The position I will do just is from minus to plus, and it has come to its perfect location. The same thing I will do with the other parts as well. Yeah. So I'll just enter the position of the caster support. This is basically a support for the caster wheel. So orientation, what I'll do is just rotate it about x-axis. Now you can see the robot is, the parts are placed correctly. The robot, you can see how the robot will look like. Now one thing is remaining. Let's just start the simulation and see. Everything has fallen apart because there's no motor attached to it. There's no linkages between things. So it will definitely fall off. Let me just stop the simulation. Now we have all the mechanical parts, but we do not have any actuators. So I'll just place the actuators. The actuators, how you can add is just click add and add the joint. So what the joint I'm going to use is revolute joint. Revolute joint is basically the rotation that provides the rotation to the wheels, and there's a prismatic joint as well that is a linear joint. Basically, you move, it gives you a linear motion, and spherical joint is another kind of rotational joint, but it gives you freedom in 3 degrees, just like in your shoulder. So in your shoulder, you can move around 3 axes. Similarly, spherical joint enables you, the robot to move around 3 axes. So I'll just pick revolute joint. So that's how a revolute joint looks like. It's slightly bigger, so I'll make it smaller in size. So let's just do it 1/10. Okay, the size is okay right now. So you don't, again the orientation I have to change, the location I have to change. So instead of going through all that entering of data, what I will do is I will just select it, then select the target wheel, say this one is the wheel, the left one. So, and I'll just click on position, apply to selection, and then to orientation. Similarly, I'll do to orientation, apply to selection. See, now you can see it has come directly to the center of the wheel where I require it to be. Similarly, I'll do with the second one. I'll just copy paste this one. I've got another joint, but what I have to do is I have to change its location to the another wheel. So I'll select this one. I'll select the other cylinder and move it to that particular position. So now it has gone to another one. So I've got 2 motors right now. I require 2 more. One will be here and one will be attached to this wheel. So again, I'll just copy paste this one and select the new joint and the wheel. Now it has come to my required position. See how fast you can assemble it. And now this one, I require it to be vertical. So vertical, how you can do is just rotate it by 90 degrees around x-axis. So it has gone vertical. Now I'll require it to move to the center of this support. So what I will do is just select the joint and the support and again apply to selection. So now it has gone to the required position, but you can see it's intersecting with the wheel itself. That normally won't do any problem. For just for the looks of it, I will reduce the size of the joint itself. So now I have got all the required joints in place. Wait a second. Okay, one joint is remaining. Now we have got all the joints ready, but what we have to do is these are just joints. There's no motor attached to it right now, so we require motors on these particular two wheels. So what we'll do is just click the icon, show dynamic properties, and motor enabled. Now we have motor enabled in these wheels. Similarly, I'll do with the second one, motor enabled. Now other two joints are passive joints. There's no motor enabled. They will be guided by these two motors. Now let's see if we can run the simulation and what will happen. Again, it falls down. The reason is that I have given the location and everything to each and every part of the robot, but I have not given the hierarchy. Hierarchy means which part is attached to where. So let me just rename the things around here, and then we can assign the. So first I have renamed it as chassis because it's basically the chassis of the robot. It will be a caster. It's a caster support, so I'll rename it that one only. Caster support, and you press enter. You change name by just double clicking any element. If you double click on name, you get the option of renaming it. If you double click the icon, you get a dialog box where you can change its properties. So it's the right wheel. So I will do it right wheel, and then you press enter. So it has been renamed to right wheel. Same with the left one. So left wheel, enter. This is caster wheel. So I'll just rename it as caster only. Enter. Now this is left side joint. I have assigned it as a motor, so I'll rename it just as a left motor. Another one is this one. Let me just check it. Yeah, so this one is right one. So I'll just rename it as a right motor. This is just a caster joint. So I'll just rename it as caster joint. And this is support. So I'll rename it as caster pivot. Now this is basically a parent structure. Chassis is the chassis. So this is the parent structure. Everything is attached from this one. So first I have to attach joints to it, just like you when you assemble a robot, you attach the motors to your chassis, then the wheels are attached to the shaft of that motor. So same here we can do. We will attach the left motor to it, just pick and place on top of it, and you can see chassis, and it has become a child of it. So you can see that line has come, and it shows that chassis is the parent and left motor is the child. Similarly with the right motor I will do. Now I will assign left wheel to left motor. So left motor is the parent and left wheel is again the child. So it shows that chassis is connected to motor and motor is connected to wheel. Similarly, I will do with the right wheel. Now these things are well connected. Similarly, I will do with the caster pivot. It is connected to chassis. Then caster support is connected to pivot. Then caster joint is connected to support. And then finally caster wheel is connected to caster joint. Now everything has been assembled. There's no use of screwdriver and anything. You just pick and place and your robot has been assembled. Now if I run the simulation, let's see what will happen. I'll just select the chassis and zoom into it. Let's see what happens. So now my robot is stable. It's not moving because I have not given any signal to the motors, but yeah, it is not falling down apart. Again, let's see how now the part comes where my mechanical system has been assembled. Now the part comes where I gives it some kind of motion. So how to do that? You can do that by simply clicking the icon of the left motor. So dynamic properties, you can set the target velocity here. So if I say select 1, it will be 1 meter per second. I'll just check it. Lock motor when target velocity is 0. So basically it brakes when I've set the target velocity is 0. Similarly, I'll do with the right motor. So I set 1 and just check it. Now, if I, okay, something is missing then. Okay, it's 1 degree per second. So basically, I have to make it say 90 degrees per second. Okay, there must be some problem with the, let me just check it. Okay, the parameter still not been changed. You can see it starts to rotate. Now I'll do the same with the right motor. You see it's going backwards. So this shows if I give the positive, it will go backwards, and if I give negative, it will go forward. So now it's going forward. To change that, because I don't want to get confused, say I'm giving the negative to go forward. It's not very intuitive. So what I'll do is just I'll pick the left motor, I'll reverse, I will rotate it by 180 degree. So 2 times 90 degree. Same with the right motor, 2 times 90 degree. And it has not changed the place, but it has changed the orientation. Now if I start again, I'll have to change these things. So now you can see it is starting to go forward. With positive one, it's going forward. If I give negative one, it will go backward. So it's how you can control the robot, give the motors, but this is the static velocity. If you want to give, say, you want to change the velocities, well, that you can do with the programming. Now the programming here involved is in the Lua, that's Lua, that's a programming language with, that Coppelia Sim uses. So for that purpose, I'll just tell you the steps. The Coppelia Sim can also be accessed through Python, but Python, for that there's additional step. So I'll be just telling you, just go right click it, add and associate child script, and then go to non-threaded one. So non-threaded one, the system will itself select it. Threaded one, it will be just running parallel to it. So if you double click the icon here, there's some kind of file icon. If you double click it, it will open the editor for you. There are different functions here. First is called init. For some of you that have used Arduino, just like there's a void setup, the syscall init is there, where the code that you want to run only one time, you can put it here. And for actuation and sensing, these are different. For actuators, say you want to run a motor, you put it into actuation. For sensors, you put in sensing. This is basically how to arrange your code neatly. And functions is called cleanup. Basically, when you press the pause stop button, if you want to execute some kind of code, it will execute at that time. So the actuation and sensing is given for the cleanup purpose. You can actually add the sensing code within the actuation itself also. There's no problem in that also. So what I'll do is I'll start coding. So first thing you have to do is get control of the motors. So there's are two motors that I can control, left motor and right motor. I have renamed the motors in left motor and right motor. These are important parameters. So what, let's start here. I'll just create a variable left motor, and this is basically the functions that are provided with Coppelia Sim API. So this API gives you access to the joints directly using your programming interface. So what I'll do is I'll get the object handle. So object handle is basically the Coppelia Sim assigns object handle a number to each and every joint or each and every part of the robot, so that even if they have some kind of similar name, the ID, basically the handle, can be unique. So it maintains a kind of register there. So this is basically get object handle. So you can see the output is in number object handle, the name of that thing I have given left motor. So number left motor and sim.get object handle string. So what you have to give inside is a string. The string, you give double quotes and put the name of the component that for whom you want to get the handle. So left motor and the right motor. Left motor, since I'm acquiring the handle from left motor, let's just put the name of it. Similarly, I'll do with the right motor. Right motor. And now I have got the handles. Using these handles, I can directly affect the joints through programming. So what I'll do is I'll use this to set some kind of velocity, say forward or backward. So let's move the robot forward. So for that, you have to do is sim dot set joint target velocity. So you can see here it has come. You can see set joint target velocity is here. just click it, enter, and it will complete itself. Now the parameters it takes in is set joint velocity, takes it the object handle. The object handle that I have created here, left motor, I will just put it here, and number. So target velocity is here. You can enter the number. It's in meters per second. So I'll just enter first the left motor. It's the object handle, and then I'll put the target velocity, say 1. Similarly, I'll do with the right motor, and here we are. Just I'll save it, and we're all set. So system actuation call is basically it will be again and again called in the loop. So every time it calls, the velocity will be set to 1. So you can see it starts moving instantly. I do not have to open these things again and again. So just to again make it easy, I'll just make the functions. So how you make function is just use this function head, and I'll name my function forward. The input will be a parameter speed. So with what speed I want to move my robot. Similarly, I can make the reverse function by negating the speed, but I'll do it more clever way. That is, I'll just call the already built function, that is forward, and give it a negative velocity. So I'll call forward, and I'll give it negative of speed. So it will go in the reverse direction. Now I will make a function to stop the robot. So there is no requirement of speed because it will be 0. I'll call the function forward again and put the velocity to be 0. Now it will stop the robot. Now for the right turn, I'll make it right. So take right. So what speed? So if I set, say, the right motor negative, it will take the right turn. So again, I do not need to define the function completely for take left. What I'll do is just give the take right function a negative speed. So it will reverse the direction of my robot. So these are the function I have defined: take left, take right, to move the robot forward, reverse, and stop. So here I will define a global variable called speed to be 0 initially, and later I can set the speed. So here if I just say type take right, I'll put some kind of speed, say 2, take right 2, and save it and start it. So see, you can see it's starting to rotate clockwise fashion, and it is moving in right direction. So let's go back to this one. The manual robot I showed you using my keyboard keys. Now this is a fixed sequence robot. Fixed sequence is basically something that have been programmed hard-coded into the robot. It will follow that sequence only. Now I'll build that one. So field sequences, in this term I'll show you that how I'll give some kind of command, say go forward for 10 seconds, right for say some 2 seconds or 3 seconds, then again forward, then left, then reverse. So I can give that kind of command to it. So how to program in that is basically I'll make, just like in your Arduino programming, you do the delay using millis. I'll do it here using the simulation time. So there's a function just like in the Arduino, there's a millis function. You can get the time there. I'll get the time here using get sim time, simulation time. So sim.get simulation time, and that's it. So it will give the current running time of my simulation. So initially I'll set my last time to be minus 10 because I do not want to coincide with the current time. So current time will be it will be updated whenever this function is called, and it will be called again and again. So therefore I'll put it at the top. Now I'll define delay, what kind of delay I want. So initially delay will be say 10 seconds. So if the difference between say the last, I'll also define an index to keep track where my current position is. So what kind of routine I have to run. So if current time minus last time has gone over some delay. So basically if there's a difference between the current time and last time I recorded it will run a delay function. So in Lua you have to do this. If there's a condition you put into it, then end. So if then end is the thing you have to use. So if the delay has gone over, you just do it in index equal to index plus 1. So that I can run next routine. Now I'll just type in the routine. If index say is 1, then it will do say forward motion. If index is equal to 1, then go forward. The speed has already been defined. Say I'll define it as 1 initially. So speed will be 1. And here I'll define the delay again, because say I want to go for 10 seconds forward, the delay will be again defined for 10 seconds, it will go forward only. Similarly, I'll do with the other things. Else, if index is say 2, then take right. And speed will be the same, and I'll just reduce the delay here. So for 5 seconds, it will turn right. I'll just copy paste it again down here. So else if index equal to say 3, 1, 2, 3, then forward speed again for 10 seconds. Then this time I'll do left and 3. Again I will do the same, but this time I'll take reverse. reverse for 10 seconds, index to be 4. So these are basically the steps that will be performed again and again. So once this has gone through, this is the fifth step. If index is equal to 5, then I'll just stop the vehicle for say 5 seconds and I'll reset the index to 1. So again it will go to index 1, then forward, take right, forward, take left, reverse, and then it will stop. So let's see if I've not done any mistake. Okay, so there seems to be some kind of mistake in programming. Let me check it.
You have used index 3 two times. Just
Okay, yeah. 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Okay, still. Okay, yeah, there's a mistake that I have not actually updated the last time. So last time it should be reset to the current time whenever it enters this if statement. So last time is now equal to current time. So you can see it has taken the right turn, then forward, then left turn, then reverse, then forward. So I guess it's not stopping. But you get the point that I can program my robot to follow a certain kind of set. So there's a sequence to it. It's going forward, then right turn, then left, then again forward, then left turn, then reverse. So it's this kind of sequence that can be followed. So let me just stop the simulation and go back to the results. So the next step is this is one is fixed sequence robot. Now next can be variable sequence robot. Variable sequence robot in terms that I can basically program it using some kind of variables in the field. There can be some kind of UI. So I'll just add the UI. I have my code ready here for the UI. So UI element will be this enter velocity. So what I'll get is from the user or from my side, I'll input through user interface the required speed of the vehicle. So I'll just paste it right here. Okay, it's XML equal to this one. So XML equal to this one, you can see just for the readability, I'll remove it. So UI, you start UI, the UI ended here, and there's a variables here. What I'll do is I've created a label text enter velocity value that will be shown to you, and spin box where I can enter the velocity in terms of from -10 to 10 in meters per second. So I'll just complete the bracket, and as I said, this function will be run during whenever you stop the simulation. So at that time I have to destroy the created UI basically. SimUI.destroy UI. So the UI will be created here and destroyed at the end of simulation. Now what it will do is, you can, if you see the spin box minimum and maximum has been set, suffix that is meter per second has been set. There's a function on change. Whenever I'll change the value of that particular spin box, whatever the value that I'll change, it will call the function change velocity. So for that I have to define the function change velocity so that I can change my speed accordingly. Function. So I'll just get the name from there, change velocity, and put it here. The variable it will be taking. So for this, we can go to documentation. I'll show you just how you can access the documentation. So if you go to, say, Copilio Sim and resources, there's a user manual. So in user manual, there it will tell you what all can you do. There's a pretty comprehensive user manual. So I'll just go to writing code and Copilio Sim AI framework, regular API. So regular API, basically I'm accessing the parameters through API of the Copilio Sim using Lua language. So regular API function, I'll select by category. So here you can search, say I've just shown you object handler, get object handler. So I'll just get object handler. So I'll just click it, open a new tab, and there you can see the whole description of the function. So in that, say, the description, it retrieves the object handler, and the parameter that it takes is basically, this is the how you use the function. So you name your sum handle that I've used, say, left motor. So that will be a number. It will give me back a number. And sim.get object handle is the function name, and string, you input the string that I have given in the form of double quotation. Inside that I have placed left motor. Similarly, we can go for the UI. So what I have done is, I already here. So what I have created is UI, and that I have created a spin box. So spin box, if you go in this one, there's a different parameters that you can define. I have defined minimum, I have defined maximum, minimum to be -10, maximum to be 10, and 10 prefix you can define, but I have defined only suffix, that is meter per second. And steps also you can define by what, say, I want to increase my velocity in terms of 0.1s, so I will put here 0.1, or if I just make it 10 times, so it will jump from 0 to 10 directly. So for that, by default it is 1, so I'll keep it that way. So it will go from 0 to 1, then 2, then 3. I'll just show you in a minute how that works. So first, this is on change. On change is basically a function that it calls on change. So I would name the function change velocity, and the parameters that it takes is UI handle, ID, and new value. So UI handle is, it will give you the handle, then ID of the process, and the new value. I'm only concerned with the new value here. So I'll just assign the new value to speed. Speed equal to new value. So you can see the UI has been created here. It shows 0. The suffix is meter per second. I can increase the velocity 1. It is already 1. I will increase once again, say 2. So you can see the robot is moving much faster now. Similarly, I can go with the 3. You see, you can see that the speed of the motor has been increased. Now it has slowed down. Now it has completely stopped. So this I have created a variable that a user can access directly without actually going into a code. The difference is that only. So you give an option to user that certain parameters he can change in the robot. I'll make it negative and it will do the reverse. It will start doing whatever the reverse. So it's going in reverse where it should have been going forward. So everything it will do in reverse. Okay. So the second stage of autonomy has been achieved. It's the third stage. Variable sequence robot. I can give it different kind of speeds. Now comes the playback robot. I'm going to skip it because the playback kind of thing, what you can do is you can say give it a direction and you have to store that directions particularly. So it's going to be a complex programming. It will take a lot of time. That's why I'm going to skip it. The thing is simple, that whatever the user is giving you input in record mode. First you have to put the robot in record mode, then give it directions. So if say I am pressing the forward button for 10 seconds, it will record that the person has pressed forward button for 10 seconds, then right button for 5 seconds, then back button for something. So I have recorded all the direction and the robot will keep on repeating it. So it's basically another level to user interaction for the robot. So for user, it's really easy to program robot. It does not have to feed the parameters. It just he only have to guide the robot in particular directions. And once that has been recorded, it will again repeat it again and again. Now comes the numerical controlled robot. Numerical controlled is basically a kind of intelligent robot where you only have to give, say, certain checkpoints. Say you are operating a drone, you give it waypoints. Just say you go first to this location, then second to this location, then third to this location, and robot itself calculates the path how it has to go to those waypoints. So that kind of intelligence will be there. Autonomously it will go it will reach those points. The path will be decided automatically. You are not going to define the path. So it's a kind of difficult program. So just let me open the Paint. So what I want to do here is, this is my coordinate system. What my goal is, basically I will give my robot a target location, a target position, and the robot should go to that target position on its own. So for that, since my robot is a surface robot, a terrestrial robot, it can only navigate in XY plane. It won't be lifted by any means. So I'm concerned only about XY plane. Z plane I can ignore completely. So in XY plane, there's 3 degrees of freedom. That's the robot can move, say, in this direction, that is Y, this direction, that is X, and similarly it can move, it can rotate. So it can rotate about this axis. So that is Z axis actually. So it has got 3 degrees of freedom within this 2D space. So say my robot is currently at this location and I am giving it direction to go to this location. So the path that should be achieved is this one. So the steps, I'll tell you the steps of algorithm that I prepared here. It's not actually possible that whenever you give the path, the robot is oriented towards that. So first step is to orient your robot in that direction. So say my robot is disoriented. This is my robot. And the direction of the robot is this one. So this is basically the heading of my robot. So in terms of orientation, if I get the orientation, it is actually 0. The x-axis is coinciding with the x-axis and y-axis of the robot is coinciding with the global y-axis. So there is a different coordinate system for the global and my robot. So for my robot, I have y-axis in this direction. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So I have x-axis in direction actually. In forward it's x-axis, and in this one it is y-axis. So my robot's coordinate is actually rotated by 90 degrees in anti-clockwise fashion. All I have to do is first rotate my robot in this direction by some certain angle, and then give it a forward motion till it reaches that point. So say the point here is x1 and y1, and here it is x2 and y2. So I can calculate the difference between them, the distance, by just doing this one, x1 minus x2 square and y2 minus y2 square. So, and under root of that. So I'll get the distance between those 2 points. And for the angle, what I can do is I can get the slope of this particular line, that is I can get through y2 minus y1, y2 minus y1, and x2 minus x1 will give me the slope of this particular line. And if I take the tan inverse of this value, what I'll get is the slope in terms of radians. So this is basically and the orientation I want to achieve. So x should be aligned in this manner. My orientation is currently this one. So what I will do is I'll just subtract that. This is my target orientation. So say target angle. Target angle is there. I'll just write in text. So what I'll do is target angle is there. Okay, it's not visible. So target angle is there, and I'll just subtract my current angle. So if say current angle is there, target angle minus current angle, and this will be, I'll assign to a variable called error in angle. So there is a difference that will be there, and I'll rotate my robot if there's a error beyond certain limit. I'll rotate my robot, and this error angle will change. I'll rotate the robot till this error angle gets near about 0. It won't be very close to 0. So I'll put the limits according to that. So whenever so the first thing it will do is it will calculate this angle, then it will start rotating. It will start rotating in this direction, and the error angle will keep on reducing. Whenever my robot gets oriented in this direction within a certain limits, the rotation will stop and the forward motion will begin, and it will go on till the distance gets 0. So I have a distance calculation also going on parallel to this error angle. So distance, whenever the distance gets into certain limits, so I'll stop my robot. This is basically the kind of algorithm I'm running. I'll just show you the algorithm. So here I have first created a UI that will take 2 inputs. That's my goal position x, y. I will give the input through this one, a user interface, and my initial is when the simulation started is 0, 0. So this code here, it does nothing. It's just and what I have done is I've got the position. See, position is equal to sim.getObject position. What I have got the position of the robot from here. -1 shows that I have got the robot the position with respect to global coordinates. Similarly, I have got the orientation. So this position, this is actually a kind of array. So first element of array will store x coordinate, the second will be storing y, and third will be storing z. Similarly, in this one, orientation, this will give you 3 variables, 3 values. First, angle about x-axis, then second y-axis, then angle about third z-axis. what I'm concerned about is z-axis only, so I'll use only orientation 3 and position 1 and 2 because I'm only concerned about x and y coordinates. So here I'm calculating the distance of the robot from the goal position. So it's basically square root of goal x minus the position, the x coordinate of my robot, the square of that, and the y minus, basically it's x2 minus x1 square plus y2 minus y1 square and the square root of that. And that this will give me the distance from the goal position. And similarly, I have calculated the slope, that is y2 minus y1 by x2 minus x1. Now, this is just, I'll delete it. And I got the angle from this one. This is the slope. What I've done is inverse math.a10. That is inverse of the slope. It will give me the target angle. Now, my goal position is, say what I have done is, if say my goal position have been achieved, goal X position, okay, so sorry, this one is different. So say if this is basically correcting something, some mathematics. So what I say is that if the goal X position is minus position of the robot is less than 0, that is basically the goal position is within the second and third coordinate. What I will do is I'll change the angle. I will increase the angle by math.pi. This is the value of pi. So why I do that is because the tan theta is basically positive in the first and third coordinate and negative in second and fourth coordinate. So it kind of, even if I give it say 1,1 or minus 1,1, it will give me the slope of 1. So to differentiate between that, I have to do this correction, so that when I give minus 1,1, the robot knows whether it has to go in reverse, that is angle plus pi. So it will do a 180-degree turn and go back. Otherwise, we'll keep on going forward and will never reach its goal position. Now here I am calculating the angle error that I told you about. The angle, the target angle that is here, minus the orientation of my robot. So I'll print that angle, it will come down in the as output, and say if angle error is less than or greater than, it's basically within a certain range, that is very less 0.05 and minus 0.05, then it will stop rotating and it will go forward. Otherwise, if angle error is greater than 0, it will turn left, or else it will turn right. So basically, if it is out of the error is out of bounds, then it will start turning, and it will turn in certain direction depending on the value of error. If the error is within certain bounds, then it will go forward. And once it is going forward, if the distance between the goal position and my current position is within certain bound, that is 0.01 meters, that is 1 centimeter. So 0.01 meter and minus 0.01 meter, it will print that goal position has been reached, and it will stop. And it will stop the sequence. That is, this is the whole sequence. If initiate sequence is true, then only this algorithm will run. So let me just show you how it operates. I just save it and start the simulation. So here I have got a UI where I can enter the values. Say I want to go to 0.5 meters by 0.5 meters, and I'll just rotate the view. Here is different, this option also can be used to change the view. So I'll just go to the top view, zoom in it a little bit. So initial position is 0, and okay, this robot is moving. I just have to do some changes here. because I've already given some speed. I'll just remove it. Okay. So the robot is currently at a 0,0 position, oriented perfectly in direction of x-axis. I want it to go in x, you can see in the bottom right corner, x is in positive here and bottom is positive. So if I give it 0.5, each block is actually 0.5 meters. So it should come here. Let's see if the algorithm is right. So it rotates, it orients itself in that direction, it reaches for, it starts moving forward, and when the goal is reached, it will stop. So in similar fashion, I can give it a different direction, say go 1 meter into X and 0 meter into Y. So that person will be this one here and set goal. So it again rotates, orients itself in that direction, goes to that location, and whenever it reaches that location, it will stop itself. So this is the another stage of autonomy where all the calculations have been done by the robot itself. You just have to give the goal locations, and there's not much to it, and that user has to do. Now the sixth and the last stage is intelligent robot, where you do not have to give any kind of input. The robot itself does everything fully autonomously. That I'll showcase you. For that, you can see there for now there have been no sensor placed on the top of robot, so there's no input here. So you can say it's not completely a robot. So what I'll do is I'll just give it a sensor. For that, what can be done is go to add. Here is the proximity sensor. There's a different kind of sensors: proximity, vision, and voice sensor. Proximity is basically telling you whether it is something is nearby or not. Vision sensors is basically giving you a kind of just like camera or lidar. And force sensor is basically tells you the force and torque between the mechanical linkages. So it's kind of a proprioceptive sensor. So what I'll do is I'll just add a proximity sensor of cone type. Ray type is just a single ray will be sent out. So and these are different shapes that sensor can take. So I'll select the cone type. You can see there's a cone that's coming out of the sensor. I have to correct the orientation of the sensor. But before that, I'll just enter some parameters. That is, first, I'll reshape the cone here. It's too wide for me to use. So I'll just change the, say, radius range is too much. So what I'll do is I'll reduce the range to, say, 15. Okay, and angle is 90 degrees, that is field of view. I'll reduce it to, say, 20 degrees. Now we have a narrow sensor that can, okay, I can reduce it further. So yeah. Now the next step is to place the sensor appropriately so that it can detect any kind of object in front of it. So orientation, again, I will rotate it about y-axis by 90 degrees. So it has been rotated. And placement, I can give it somewhat similar to caster support. So I will just apply the position here and translate it by slowly. I'll translate it. Okay, the whole system has been translated. I'll select only proximity sensor and translate it. So you can see it has come forward. I'll just keep it back. And I'll give it a white translation as well. Sorry, Z translation of say 0.01. Yeah, seems about right. And again, because it is attached to chassis, I'll just drag it and drop it on the chassis. Now our robot has got a sensor, and we can access the sensor parameters through script itself. So what I will do is I'll remove all the things of previous one and okay, I'll just copy paste it for now because a lot of time has been. So let me just explain what it does. So you have seen that you can get the object handle. In similar fashion, I can get the object handle from sensor. So sensor is first I have to get object handle of the sensor for whatever parameter you are taking input or giving output to. You have to, the first step is to get that object handle. So the name here is sensor. So for that I have to rename my sensor here. That is so that I can get correct object handle. And sensor value, I can get the sensor value by just typing this function sim.read proximity sensor, and this is the sensor handle. So sensor value, if say is sensor value is greater than 0, that means the sensor has detected some kind of object, and you can take necessary action. So here I have printed obstacle detected, changing course. So how I am changing course is I'm just updating my last time with current time, and if that current time and last time there's a difference less than a delay, what I'll do is I'll take left. So whenever an obstacle is detected, I'll take left for certain amount of time and then again go forward. So if there's no object detected, it will go forward, print moving forward. It will print moving forward, and it will keep on going forward till an object is till an obstacle is detected. Hope I saved the So now since there is no object, it will keep on going on forward and will fall off the edge. So for that I'll have to add some kind of obstacles in front of it. So for that I'll use again the cuboid one, and the dimensions here I will set 1 meter. The thickness of wall, and so z axis will be the height of the wall. So here the wall has been created. I am using this as obstacle. So I have to change some properties about it. So first is dynamic properties. The body is respondable but not dynamic. That means it's a static object. If something hits it, it won't move at all. That's actually what I want from my property of wall. Then another thing I want to change is basically in the common tab, where the object is collidable, measurable, detectable by the sensor, and renderable. That means you can see the object. collidable means it can collide. It can the robot can collide with it. Measurable, it can be measured. Basically, it's a parameter that used by Cochlear SIM to measure the minimum distance between two objects. Detectable means it can be detected by different sensors. In details, you can see ultrasonic, infrared, laser. These are kind of sensors that it can be detected from. And renderable, that means during the simulation run, you can see this particular object. Let me check once again. Okay, yeah. So what I'll do is just copy paste it again and again, so that I can create a particular boundary around the robot. I'll move. See, by simply dragging and dropping, you can move the objects. Again, I'll make 2 copies of it and basically rotate it 90 degrees. I'll select another one and rotate that to 90 degrees. Now the next step is to move these things. So I'll just make a complete pole around my robot. Now my robot has been enclosed within the balls, and whenever it detects, it should avoid hitting the balls and take a turn. So you can see it has just shown object detected. Now it's moving forward. Now as soon as it detects an object, it will take a left turn. Then it will go forward. Then again, whenever some kind of obstacle is detected, it will take a left turn. So sensor, I'm not doing anything here. I'm not giving any parameters to the robot. So it's doing everything on its own. It's taking the input from sensor and then planning according to it and taking the action and avoiding the obstacle. So you can say it's a kind of primitive intelligent robot. It's not very sophisticated. It's not very useful because it's just avoiding obstacles and not doing much work. But this is the basic building block of the robots.
We can we can build robots over this. This is the primitive state that we have designed. We have shown you. There, like, you can make a house cleaning robot based on this design. That we have the brushes around that robot, and it can do the house cleaning and avoid the other obstacles placed within the room. So that's what.
Yeah. So just in previous step, I showed you that the robot can be numerically controlled. So what these two can be combined. Whatever already shown you that intelligent robot, it avoids the obstacle. And fifth and sixth step, if I combine, I'll give it say a goal position, and even while going to goal position, say it detects some kind of obstacle, it will move around that obstacle and still it circumnavigate that obstacle and still goes to that particular location. So that can be useful, say in terms of goal planning or path planning robotics. And if say it can be useful in even arm robot. So in arm robot, if say your workspace has some kind of object within it, your robot must not hit that object, so it circumnavigates that object and reaches its goal position.
Okay, so actually starting from the building blocks to the robot, we can make manual controlled robots. Thereafter, we can give a kind of intelligence to it, a fixed intelligence to it, so that it can move here and there. And thereafter, we can make it learn that wherever it has gone, we can make it learn the area where it has gone and go to the same route again and again. So that's what the playback robot will give you the feature. And thereafter, we can plan some area that you can make it learn that what is the area and where are the obstacles in my room. And based on that, it can move to the positions using the intelligent features. So that's how the planning can be done for the robots. and the technology support, whether you require entrepreneurial support, whether you require corporate communication support. So all kind of supports that we are here.
All kind of support, including technology training, including funding opportunities, including your startup
mentorship,
establishment, mentorship and establishment. All kind of support we are ready to provide you.
Thank you, everyone. So